welcome to Flat Earth Debate, Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe. Hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Also below this video, you can get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy, and this is a particular note if you drive an electric vehicle. Speaking of Patrons, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon, so a massive shout out of thanks and appreciation to Fiber Oats, who I saw on QE's channel yesterday. Big shout out to you, my friend. Bogey, Michael Kahn, Sarah Griffiths, Rob H, Ben White, Maximum Gravy, John Kays, Tommy Swagnuts, Patrick Gunnels, Banter, Will Brax, Mel B Styles, Troy Shuker, Bosnail, Harry Blade, Mobile Max 777, Neo the One, Lost Cat FE, Rob W, Open Minded, Reese Pound, Del West Watson, Muted, Maria Neelands, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, The Real Gabster, Liam Nedrick Jr., Abraham Mohammed, Adrian Quintana, Skeptic936, Life is Short, Texas Mike, and David Wayne Foster. So another massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Now I will hand over to whoever is in Discord and Google so you can enjoy their dulcet tones while I set up for today's live show.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you, Nathan?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. We didn't think you were doing a show, so we went to another room. But
No,
glad to see.
I'm definitely doing the show.
Hey, Nathan, what show is today for my...
Man, how are you?
Tired.
I missed you.
65.
1565?
I believe so.
All right. Yeah, the last show I was on was December 16th, so I lost count.
Easily done. Sometimes I'll lob an entire 100 shows off or onto the show number.
So I've been catching bits and pieces. Seems like Charles was not in charge of a show when he thought he was in charge of a show. When you asked 20 times, where'd you get R?
Yeah. Anthony summed it up quite nicely after the fact. He was like, I came in, watched it. After 5 minutes, he was dead. And then it was 55 minutes of him squirming and obfuscating.
But that's the best part, him squirming. I loved it. If you can't read a face, then you need to pray for discernment, because that was epic.
Well, you can't give a direct answer. That's a big tell, too.
And then don't forget Akumu Virus coming on yesterday. Classic retardation.
That was in the after show. I didn't get it.
Yeah. Along with FE Pilot
Yes.
and in the live show we had Where's Wally?
I listened to Where's Wally. That was classic as well. I mean, he came in for Bitcoin and he plainly said everything we've been saying about an angle. You need a baseline that has to be flat. So they measure everything flat. Then in their mind, twisted as it is, they make it into a globe.
I mean, he might say he's coming in for Bitcoin, but the way it normally goes with the last 3 or however many it is that have come by this way, Dave Weiss will give me a heads up that somebody has qualified for the Bitcoin challenge. And at that point, they'll start sending him information. He'll then send them to me. That's how it works. Now, as that's happening, I'm kept well abreast of what's going on in every instance. Now, how much has Dave Weiss told me about Wally? Have a guess.
None.
Nothing.
Not a word. Not a single word. Nothing. Literally nothing. So he comes and says, I'm going to get Bitcoin. I'm like, do you qualify? And he's presumably just ignored me, because I doubt he even qualifies. I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe he does, and Dave's just neglected to tell me. But typically, I'm aware well before... Do you remember when I was saying there's a guy due for a solid week, and then he turned up?
Yes,
Yeah.
I remember.
Well, how have I been saying? We're due to get Wally for Bitcoin challenge. No, not a bit of it. Because, I mean, maybe Dave's aware. I don't want to speak on behalf. I don't want to speak out of turn and then him come back and go, oh, yeah, I was aware. It was just Christmas. I didn't tell you. Because that might be the case.
Well, if you've had forewarning before and you just don't have it now, more than likely he hasn't told you. Or like you said, it could be the holidays.
Yeah, but are they?
But it doesn't matter.
Wait, because they're confessing that they need a flat baseline. Are they that stupid they're not getting it, or are they just on our side now? Because their confessions are epic.
Yeah, when they do that, so far their justification is, I haven't begged any questions yet. You're like, yeah, all you've done is measured it flat so far. But they're like, but I haven't begged the question, it's a sphere, so it's all good, right? No, all you've done is proved it's flat. So what, if I let you beg the question after proving it's flat, that it's a sphere, you'll win? But because you haven't yet begged the question, you've just measured it flat, it's all good. And at that stage, when they're measuring it flat, there's no need to assume any sphericity, and they can't because it will mess up the angle measurement. So they're telling us, why would it be curved at that point? You're like, because you think you're on a sphere, you stupid idiot.
I stuck a slide up in Master B if you want to pull it up.
Nth man is back.
Good morning to all.
Good morning.
What's going on with the slide?
I don't know.
Maybe he's starting to show?
I don't know. Who's in Discord?
I am. So,
Good morning.
is it like personal why you were away or something like that, or is there anything you can tell us what happened?
Yeah, we went to visit family, grandkids, and got on a pair of roller skates to skate with them and hit a rock and fell and braced the fall with the right hand. The wrist broke in two places. And there we are.
Okay, so you've been spending time with your...
Yeah, family that moved to Idaho, so with the grandkids.
Okay.
But you know, when the wrist break is not something is very painful and
No doubt.
and can't function. So I got double duty. So it's great when two adults are doing their own thing, but then when one is down, the other one has to do both, and that's where I've been. So it's just been taking a lot of time, and obviously I got to nurse her back.
Yeah, you learn how people are. I had a boss that happened. His wife broke a leg, and he came in to get me, and all he was doing was complaining about it. Now I got to do all the work. I was like, wow, this guy's marriage is down the tubes. And they did. They eventually got divorced.
Well, it shows God uses these things. God uses all trials and tribulations to teach us about ourselves, our attitudes, what's real servanthood is, and you know, how far is your love? You willing to cook? You willing to do the laundry? You willing to do all the things you weren't doing? Now you got to be doing.
So early in our marriage, you went to Christian counseling, and I said, break it down. What's her job? What's his job? And the guy was like, you want me to do the Christian, use the Bible? I said, yeah, of course. He said, he wrote down everything: laundry, groceries, cooking, your job. I was like, what? He goes, but when you cherish your wife, she comes alongside you, she's your helpmate, and she does the cooking, the cleaning, the taking care of the children while you go out to work. So it's about cherishing what God has given you.
Well, Neil, I do the cooking too, so I'm okay.
I used to cook, but my wife spoiled me. I don't even know how to cook anymore.
Good for her.
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, how dare you, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Also below this video, you can get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy, and this is of particular note if you drive an electric vehicle. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. One last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now we are joined by 10th Man, woohoo, Neil, Refracted Curvature, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Greetings.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
How are
Very
you?
polite. Good afternoon to you too.
Very highbrow.
Indeed, he do. Any evidence you can have a curved adjacent when measuring an elevation angle?
No, every sailor that held a sextant would be lost and not know what the heck's going on if that was actually what was taking place, which can't take place because you can't have an angle with a curved adjacent.
Kind of hard to prove a sphere if you have to use a flat plane to do it, you know?
When they get to that stage in the argument, they start asking us why the ground beneath their feet would be curved. Or telling us that, well, I haven't begged any questions yet. It's like, yeah, so far, you've just measured a flat plane. And as a result, you think it's okay to tell us that because you haven't assumed a sphere yet, the measurement of a flat plane, when you point out that you're measuring a flat plane, has nothing to do with the ground. Nothing at all. Nothing at all to see here. It's not to do with the ground. That's what they tell us.
Yeah, the call was it who was it? Wally. Yesterday's show, I think he admitted it was baseline was flat and it wouldn't work with a curved adjacent. So they measure it flat, and then they go into assumption world and they assume their globe. They assume parallel sun rays. They assume everything after that because in reality, it's flat.
Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge horizon, formerly known as the curve of the Earth?
No, the Black Swan took care of that. You got to produce a radius value. And you asked, Charlie, right? I caught a little bit of that show 20 times for R. And I mean, if you asked me for my address, I'd give it to you instantly because I know my address. R is the address of Earth's spherical coordinates. Everything goes with R, but they don't know that address.
Well, we exposed a pilot too. He swears that the horizon is Earth curve. But then we realized and we figured out that he's not a pilot. He's a charlatan phony.
Well, yeah, that might be true, and yeah. But aside from the faceless potato and the accreditation he lied about having in terms of being a pilot, he also claimed that we have Earth curve for a horizon, and then we had to show him how he was wrong in that regard, that the geometric horizon, formerly known as Earth curve, only exists in the maths, and that now claimed to be refracted and very close to a geometric horizon that can't be measured and can't be seen, is good enough. Well, it isn't. You can't refract a horizon with an R value unless you can get a geometric value of R. Speaking of R, any evidence of Earth's radius?
Hang on. Well, even Andrew Thomas Young will tell you it only exists in the maths. And what's his face? The one that's no longer coming here anymore. He says it only exists in the maths. And now we got people on their side saying that the horizon is Earth curve, and yet we've got several pictures that Earth curve that needs to be physical, unchanging, is changing all the time. So is the Earth morphing?
No, it's just not a geometric tangent point capable of derivation of an R value.
Yeah, so one day it's 10 miles out, another day it's 30 miles out, weather changes, it's 15 miles out at the same height of the observer. That's not geometric.
Yeah. Meanwhile, hills, obstructions, doesn't really matter what the weather is. If they're in the way of something, they're in the way of something. They don't move and suddenly become miles behind whatever they're obscuring the day before because of a bit of weather. Hills have physical attributes that the horizon does not. And a hill is precisely what they're asserting the horizon is. Earth curve edge. Well, it isn't. We've debunked that.
Yes, and the two oil platforms in the original Black Swan represent the hills that don't move because they're known distances from the shoreline, and the horizon is behind both.
Correct. And I love the ant illustration on a basketball. Can't get around it. That's it. Earth is flat, people.
Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
None whatsoever. There's no Earth-based Coriolis, and you'd need R for that as well.
Yeah, you can't beg the question of Coriolis without establishing the axis first.
I tried to ask for R first, but 10th wasn't having it. Any evidence of the R value?
You're going to have axial rotation for that.
That's kind of true.
Hiya, can I ask something, guys?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, it's echoing there, sorry. If the Earth was a sphere, which it's not, how would anybody go about measuring it, is my first question. And obviously they say now it's not an actual sphere, it's a oblique spheroid or whatever they tell you it is. Could that have one radius value? No
Good question.
or yes?
Good question. The answer, although we use it to annihilate the claim of Earth being a sphere, the answer is held within the modus tollens and, if you will, the original globe Earth assertion. So if the Earth is a sphere, then every distance to horizon measurement can be no more than 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet. Well, that's what you'd have. In other words, when I described hills that don't move, if we were on a sphere, we would have a geometric sphere edge for a horizon. We don't.
That's correct.
And the 1.2 in the mathematics covers any derivations of the geoid they claim. So, not exact, but it should be right at that.
So it works both ways. They claim horizon sphere edge, it's blocking stuff, look how it blocks stuff, it's therefore horizon that's Earth curve. Then we go, okay, if horizon Earth curve, then the distance to it can't be any more than this, because those are the geometric limitations of the hill you're claiming it is. As soon as the hill's behind the thing it's supposed to block, it's not a geometric physical Earth curve obstruction. End result, we haven't got an Earth curve for a horizon, and we should have and would have if we were on a sphere. Hope that answers your question.
And even if they try to use refraction, they're still going to need R for 7/6.
Correct. When they claim the horizon is refracted and we've got a second horizon that we can't see, therefore not a horizon, and it's based on that, then they're going to need to refract that horizon we can't see, therefore not a horizon, at a rate of r in sphere-shaped air. That's atmosphere, or atmospheric refraction. Well, they've got to bend it at a rate of r, which they can no longer measure because they haven't got a physical tangent point horizon to measure, because they're saying it's refracted. Now, if they then say, well, it's close to it, the horizon we see, it's close to the geometric horizon. Oh, yeah. How do you measure the geometric horizon to see how close it was? Answer, you can't. So being close to something you can't measure, can't see, and only exists in maths is a nonsensical statement that's wrapped up in a paradox when you're refracting the tangent point you would measure to get r to refract it with.
Nathan, come on. If Earth was flat, there would be no horizon at all.
That's a throwback from people who used to, in 2015 and 16, or thereabouts, assert that with Muppet vision, when you see the side of your own head and the target on one side of the page and you on the other side of the page and a line drawn between them with a sphere Earth underneath that line, they say that the obstruction at the horizon, which you're now seeing the side of as a single point on a sphere, is the horizon that's going to cause the obstruction. And if you remove that sphere from that line, there's no longer a horizon at all, because the only assertion in Earth curve maths is that the physical geometric sphere edge limitation called Earth curve is the horizon and nothing else. There's no other cause for it. So when you stump some globe fundy by saying, here you go, here's a boat disappearing bottom first, long before your physical geometric sphere edge horizon, they'll start detailing how you've got optical effects, which are not a consideration in Muppet vision mathematics, that would give you a unobscured view from target to observer if you draw a line in Muppet vision. You on the left, target on the right, line between the two. You can write 20 million miles on the line in Muppet vision when you're looking at the side of your own head, and you can still see the target in that representation. That's how they remove perspective from the curve maths. Any more,
Yeah,
Neil?
it seems like 2015 arguments are coming back. I knew that was going to happen.
We wouldn't have
No,
a
I'm good.
horizon in a Muppet vision representation of a sphere. Yeah. We don't see the side of our own heads to make that claim, though. What we do see is things receding into the distance. That's perspective, something that's totally ignored in Muppet vision mathematics of Earth curve, because their targets don't change in size with distance. The angular size, the not actual size, the apparent size of things that you look at gets smaller with distance. In Earth curve maths, a 10-foot wall's a 10-foot wall, even if it's a million miles away, because it's in Muppet vision. So you write 10 foot on the wall, 6 foot on the man, draw a line between the two, and write a million miles on it. And go, there you go. On a flat Earth, you'd still see this 10-foot wall at 20 million miles, because there's nothing obscuring it. There's no Earth curve in the way. Any more, Neil?
No, but I love when you give that brick illustration. I remember those days. Those were the good old days. No, I got it.
Need a fundy
But
to
the
lead with
world
that
needs
one,
to
though.
get it.
Yeah, the brick
Yeah.
examples, you've got to have a fundy actually asserting that the horizon is Earth curve and that there's no such thing as perspective or something like that. And then you just take them through step by step of putting a brick on the horizon at 1 mile. Can you see it? Yeah, I can see it. What about 2 miles? No, I can't see the brick on the horizon. It's too small. Okay, what about if you put 20 other bricks on top of it and start, or even build a skyscraper on top of the first brick? Can you see the first brick now? Well, no, it's too small still. But you can see the rest of them. Go. It's got too small to see in the distance, the bottom brick. But with the wider angle, to the rest of them, you can see them. So it's disappeared bottom first without any Earth curve having to be described whatsoever. Just because it's too small at the bottom. Yeah, simple. But that's not accounted for in Earth curve maths. That's a just detailed description of things in the distance getting smaller. Well, do things in Earth curve maths get smaller? No. 100-foot building. Always 100 foot. And is that wrong? Well, no. Its actual size stays the same. But how it looks in a photo radically changes with distance. That's apparent size, angular size. Something they don't deal with in Earth curve maths. One straight line only. Which they don't have anymore. It's all refracted. The Earth curve maths is in the right shambles. Has been for a while. Any evidence you can have gas pressure without the necessary antecedent of a container to press upon?
Negative.
We may get Sleeping Warrior at some stage today. He did say he wanted to drop by about something, which I can't remember. I'm really sorry, Sleeping Warrior, but I'm going to guess it's probably something to do with gravity. We'll see. Any scientific evidence of gravity?
Which one?
Whichever one Anthony Riley probably doesn't want to talk about. It'll be a different subject, but I don't know.
You'll never enter the scientific method with an invalid description of a phenomenon no one's ever observed.
You see, and that brings me to my son. He doesn't understand the scientific method. I tried to go through it with him yesterday, and he just doesn't get it. It's pseudoscientists.
How old is he?
If you ignore the experimental stage, you can solve the
19.
scientific method with the hypothesis construction, which is if A, then B. So A is your presumed cause, B is the effect you're studying. So if A, then B. Also, if A, not B. That's the entirety of a valid hypothesis. So you've got your presumed cause, A, and it causes B. That's a supposition of cause. A, I think A causes B. If A, then B. I think A will cause B. B is your effect that you're trying to induce. In the hypothesis, you've also got if A, not B. So my supposition of cause is wrong. A will not cause B. Now that's the full hypothesis. Now when you vary A, it either validates your first supposition, if A then B, i.e. you vary A and it causes B, therefore A causes B. Validated that at that point, supposition of cause. You proved it. Also, if you vary A and it doesn't cause B, then you have proven what's known as the null. If A, not B. You've proven that. You varied A, it didn't cause B, exactly as predicted in the null. If A, not B, I varied A, didn't cause B, I proved my null. That's science. That's the scientific method. That's all it is. You see something happening, you go, I wonder what caused it. You assume something that might cause it and vary it to see if it does. If it does, you validate your alternative hypothesis, if A then B. If it doesn't, you validate your null. If A, not B. That's science.
Well, here's the problem. It's in the first step, the observe a natural phenomenon. It's psychology, science.
Psychology isn't science.
That's what I said. I said, where's the observed phenomenon? What are you studying? What are you looking at that you could science it? So I think that's where the problem is. They don't know what a observed natural phenomenon is.
Yeah, that's pretty basic stuff. Something happening in nature that hasn't been induced by a man in the first instance.
Well, it started with the computer from that movie. That movie, what was the name of that movie again? Don't Look Up.
Don't Look Up.
Because he was saying, what do you mean? The computer is science. And I'm like, it's not science, it's technology, Jacob. Come on.
Well, we don't observe Earth rotation. We don't observe curved coastlines and horizons. So we don't even have that to begin the scientific method for their ball.
Correct. That's the next thing that came up. I asked him if he thinks Earth, which I did too. I thought is a natural, observed phenomenon. Earth itself, until Nathan broke it down. Now I understand that it's not.
It's like tree. Is tree a phenomenon? No. Is a leaf falling from a tree a phenomenon? Yes. Something's happening. You can try and ascertain the cause of that.
So was I safe to say that the computer is the cause of the computer is the man, correct? Because man created it.
Computer's not a phenomenon. No, it's not a naturally occurring event. So, in terms of scientific discovery, you're right in terms of what you said to him. It's a man that's made that. That's a piece of technology. It's come about through trial and error. It's not come about through systematic experimentation based on phenomena. Now, there might be certain components that have had a scientific background, but that doesn't make the computer science. You could argue that there's certain aspects of your microwave that come from scientific, valid sources. Doesn't make your microwave science. Doesn't make a computer science. These things are technology. They call them applied science because they've got a pseudoscience religion that needs validating. And when they don't have science, it doesn't sound as good. Because you go from scientist or computer scientist to dweeb. Well, they'd rather be a scientist, wouldn't they? Anthony, did you want to present something?
Yeah. Whilst there's not many trolls in chat, it's probably worth talking about this while they're not here, because I don't like talking to them about this stuff because they just deny, dismiss, deceive, they obfuscate to death. But I want to go through a little bit of general relativity for our benefit, because if we read it and we understand what's being said in it, if we ever have to cite it, we at least know where to look for it when we find it or to find it. So it's only going to take a few minutes, but it's definitely worth addressing because Elijah brought it up yesterday, and it needs more attention on our side because it's important. Let's get rid of that. So in Einstein's theory of general relativity, right, the current position on gravity today, in 1915, Albert Einstein declared something called space-time. Well, we know that it superseded Newtonian. We know that it snapped the wand. And even though Fight the Flat Earth doesn't like it, it doesn't change that fact. He claims that it refines. And we all know that supersedes doesn't mean refine. But in the context of that conversation, if we consider some of the text out of this section in the theory of general relativity from the gravitational field bit, we can see exactly why snapping the wand is the correct phrase and why refinement, as per Craig McNeil, is not. If we pick up a stone and then let it go, why does it fall to the ground? We'll compare and contrast that to if we have a helium balloon and then let it go, why does it fall to the sky? Be thinking of both. The usual answer to this question is because it is attracted by the Earth. Well, that doesn't work with helium balloons, does it? Modern physics formulates the answer rather differently. So I'm going to focus on the word differently because it's not refining the answer, is it? It's contrasting because it's different, not similar, different, for the following reason. As a result of the more careful study of electromagnetic phenomena, I don't know who he means when he says we, but I'm assuming he means the scientific community at large, we have come to regard action at a distance as a, quote, process impossible without the intervention of some intermediary medium. Well, we are in an intermediate medium. It's the density gradient, the pressure gradient that we breathe. And we just call it the medium, not the intermediary medium, just the medium. But let's be clear with what he says. He says, as a result of the more careful study of electromagnetic phenomena, the scientific community have come to regard action at a distance as a process impossible. That's not good if you're a Newtonian nonsense person, because he's telling you that it's been replaced because it was impossible without the intervention of some intermediary medium. Well, we know that a stone will fall through the medium, but we also know that the helium balloon will rise through the medium. So not everything's falling towards the ground, is it? Because even though he cites it as falling to the ground, that doesn't address the helium balloon. But he does address the word medium. Then he goes on to talk about magnets for a bit. We'll fast forward past magnets, and this is what I always get cited against me, and I love this, but they just ignore this when I counter it. The action of the Earth the action of the Earth on the stone takes place indirectly. Another phrase for this, another way of saying this is there is no action of the Earth on the stone, because what it's saying is it's the medium that causes the interaction on the stone. Well, that's the same medium that causes the helium balloon to rise. So when he says the action of the Earth on the stone takes place indirectly, the other way to interpret that is it doesn't act on the stone at all. And when he says the Earth produces its gravitational field, Well, earlier on, he's talking about the medium. He calls it an intermediary medium. So we've got this conflation of the intermediary medium with the gravitational field. Well, we just say it's the medium because it's the medium of air. And we know that things go up in air. We know that lots of things go up in the medium of water. And they're the two main mediums that we exist in, water and air. So I'm pointing out that what he's doing is conflating gravitational field with medium. And he's also acknowledging that there is no action of the earth on the stone because it's indirect. Well, that means it doesn't exist. Now, for those people that still want to push Newtonian nonsense, they've really got to address this because he's literally telling you it's the medium that's causing the acceleration. But because he only references stones falling and falling to the ground, if he'd said, if we have a helium balloon or an egg in salt water and then add more salt, why does it go to the ground? The answer that you then give cannot be because it is attracted by the clouds. Or what is the answer with the egg, the salt test, right? Because it doesn't transpose into this example that he gives, because there is no explanation for it on their model without addressing what buoyant force. Well, we know that that's a process impossible, so it can't be that. But we do know that there is an intermediary medium. So when you read the context of this and you start piecing it together piece by piece, you realize that he's describing relative density, but he calls it a gravitational field. He's literally describing relative density. He just calls it a gravitational field. When you understand that, all of a sudden, general relativity starts making a lot of sense. He's just calling it woo-woo, but really he's talking about the medium. They just call it gravitational to make you think that there's some kind of pull force to the earth, even though he describes it as system process impossible. So I just wanted to raise awareness to that, because now you know where it is and you can go to it and you can pull these pieces out. When they compare and they refine the arguments mathematically, because it reduces down to, you can't have one set of maths reducing down to another if one of them is impossible. Doesn't work, does it? So this nonsense about refinement, it really needs to go in the bin. And people that push it really need to go in the bin with it. I'm done.
Very good. And thank you, Eli, for bringing it to our attention yesterday, because it sparked Sleep and Warrior to hear you bringing it to our attention, if you know what I mean.
Well, I have a question about that, because it's kind of into begging the question a little bit, but the space-time is described as a conceptual medium. Is that why they're saying it needs a medium?
Well, we're in a medium of air, but if he calls it a gravitational medium, then that medium can be unicorn medium, right? It can be anything that you call it. It's just a label. It's just a noun. But if you infer with a stereotype fallacy, for example, that all Geordies all wear shell suits because of Gaza, for example, I know that if you're American, you won't get this, but all Geordies wear shell suits because of Gaza, you're stereotyping Geordies with shell suits in Gaza. Well, if you do that same principle to gravitational fields that we breathe called air, then you're going to think that there's some force of attraction between you and the earth, even though he expressly states that there is no action of the earth on the stone. Well, that kind of throws that in the bin if you actually read it. But they can call it anything they want. But if the action is indirect, otherwise not there at all, then it's not the earth that's causing it, it's the medium. And if we call that the gravitational medium, then guess what that makes you think? It makes you think that all Geordies wear shell suits because of Gaza. And it's not actually true.
What he's saying is, if you've got the poo-pooing of Newtonian gravity in this Einsteinian text as describing the medium, would that be, and I'm going to explain it in the answer, call to invent a new medium? And the answer to that, although that isn't what you asked, is yes. John.
I think he was handing over to you, John.
Yeah, I don't think he's obviously tied up doing something. That's fine. Okay, yeah, cool.
Oh, sorry. What I was going to say though is they're looking at this through like a lens where they think they already know that the Earth's a sphere, and they're trying to describe phenomena within that paradigm. So I think that's where most of their problems lie.
Yeah, They make you think that the stone falling to Earth is gravitational, but they don't address the helium balloon rising to the clouds, because what would they call that? That's not gravitational, is it?
As we started
It's
this
complete
discussion,
nonsense.
go on.
It's complete nonsense. It's just doublespeak. It's like when I add the salt to the water and the egg accelerates, rather than admit that the salt was the cause, they say, well, the salt did this, but then that then caused this, and that's the reason why. And it's like, that's not what when you add the salt, that's the cause in a scientific test. But they don't like that, because in their model, when you change the density of something, it's just a benign ratio. It doesn't do anything. It's just, it's a measurement. It's not actually a force. It can't be a force. Well, because it doesn't jive with their nonsense, they have to hate on it. Well, at the end of the day, you see me pour the salt in, right? So whatever that does, the salt was the cause. It wasn't something that then caused something else. It was the salt that caused it. Otherwise, it would never have moved.
Speaking of experiments, any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
Well, I think that speaks to the problem that Anthony's getting at, is if you're in one of those fields and you're a heliocentrist, all of your phenomena will be described with a radial value that can't be measured.
Speaking of radial values that can't be measured, any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
Nope, nobody's been there, so it can't be proven.
Any evidence of the distance to the Sun?
Any angle measurements you would use to assert a distance would need to be taken on a flat plane.
Yeah, why would they need to be curved and adjacent? Why would they need to? Come on, Flat Earther, tell me why it would need to be curved. Just so people are in the know. That is the rebuttal we're getting at the moment. We point out that when they measure an angle to anything, they're utilising a flat surface, a flat Earth, a baseline that's straight, an elevation angle. I don't know how many other ways I can say this. That's what is needed to be done to measure an angle. And as a result, when we point out that they are in fact measuring angles off flat baselines, they ask us, that's globe-believing idiots who assert the Earth is a sphere and curving away from them in every direction, they ask us why we would measure the ground curve at that point. Now, we would not. But they most definitely need to, given that they're claiming it's curved beneath their feet. And yet they're moving forward by measuring a flat baseline and a flat Earth in order to then beg the question. Now, further to that, without a rebuttal, I can't even believe I'm saying this, that's basically, I haven't begged the question of a sphere yet. So it's not fair to haul me over the coals for measuring a flat baseline on a flat Earth. I haven't begged the question of a sphere yet. I haven't done anything yet. It's like, yeah, what you've done is proved it's flat. So far. And you haven't begged the question in doing so like you normally do. Man, that must be painful. To have to measure it flat first. And when we stop you there, you go, hold on, you've stopped me at the flat Earth measurement that I've just made. I haven't even assumed it's a sphere yet.
Did you ever think you would have your opponents in this arena telling you how flat the land underneath the mountain is?
I prefer level. That's me imitating the globe believer from yesterday. No, level. What's that, globe believer? You would prefer we said it's all level? Yeah, level. Not horizontal, level. You just can't make it up.
When they cite that Merriam-Webster definition for level, it's the only one that references level in that same. The alternative, the correct word that they should be citing is the word equidistant. But level is flat. It's without any shape to it. It's like a single. We all know what level means. But because they've got that one, but 10 of them don't say the same thing, what they're doing is they're proving that they're cherry picking, because when you look at the definition from other citations, not one of them supports it. I had it today. One of the idiots, I compared Eratosthenes and Archimedes as religious figures in the same way that Noah and Moses. And I asked which way round was it? Was it Eratosthenes or was it Archimedes that had the ark? My point being that they're religious figures, right? And they dismissed the religious figures from the Bible. Well, it's the same as their religious figures in their nonsense. Who's to say that Eratosthenes even existed? Because if he did exist, or he's begging the question with his maths, isn't he? He doesn't know the shape of the earth.
This is Anthony being a total bastard. So while Anthony, like me, has had a Christian upbringing, he's got no real affiliation to any religion whatsoever. But he can make the comparisons, and boy, do they sting. Because they assume every single one of us are Christian, bowing at the altar of Christ, religious fundies. Therefore, when you juxtapose their religious figureheads with Christian figureheads, that Anthony, let's be honest, doesn't really care about. Let's be honest, Anthony, you don't, do you?
No, I mean, I was brought up Church of England like everybody else was. When I say everybody else, I don't mean literally every single person, but in the 80s, 70% of people were brought up with the Church of England education, and that involved Church of England. Nathan's pretty much the same as everybody that's in our area. I'm sure Jaron, he's the same year as us. I'm sure he was brought up with Church of America or whatever it is in America. Just that normal state Christian background to it. That's it. That's as far as it went.
Actually, no, that's not true. Just don't want people to correct me in the comments. He had a Jesuit upbringing. No, it's true. It's true. But one of the things he noted, which I will drop in at this point, was to say, because my wife asked me about it, why would it be that the churches talk about heliocentrism? It's like, because they're the ones who came up with it. And Jaron asked the same and pointed out the same on his show when he talks about his Jesuit education that he had. You know, you're walking around with all these priests and you're walking into the exact same science class and talking about a heliocentric model, which they came up with. So that's why. It's theirs. They're the ones that came up with it.
Protest. Bible didn't come up with that. Religions did. Catholic religion did, not the Bible.
Yeah, but we're losing the point here, though. The point I was making is that when they bring up they don't like biblical references, right? So, and I like to wind them up with it because it's brilliant. But when they bring up, someone said to me today, he said, well, even the Bible references that the earth is a globe. And I said, well, go on then, give me the citation. So he cited a paragraph. And when I checked it on, because there's like websites that you can go to where you see different versions of the Bible quoting the same paragraph. And I couldn't validate his claim that the earth said it were a globe in this particular revision of the Bible. But there was about 15 there that none of which said globe. They all said sphere of the earth, or the circle of the earth, or the earth without having any shape being attached to it. They just said the earth, but none of them said globe. So when I said to him,
none of them say globe, none of them say sphere. There's a verse in Isaiah, the circle of the earth. Please, someone define what a circle is.
Well, yeah, I mean,
what's the definition of a circle? Remember, one guy didn't know it here on the anti-flat earther side.
Well, two-dimensional shape, right?
Thank you. So you can't use that scripture, circle of the earth, and say it says it's a sphere when it never did. It's a circle. Circle of the earth.
Okay, yeah, we're way into the weeds now. I just want to do a quick shout out. Multi-Tom, thank you very much indeed for your super chat. He says, shout out to Where's Wally for using a level baseline to get angles, thus proving flat earth. Priceless. I agree with the sentiment, and thank you very much for the super chat, Multi-Tom. That was actually the last housekeeping question after Anthony, or just before Anthony joined. We did actually cover all of them. Excellent stuff. But we've got off into the beaten, I don't know, 10th. It's good to have you back. That wasn't really where we were going with it, though.
Oh, I know. I'm just adding more clarity to it.
I'm just saying there's a lot of within the heliocentric rhetoric. If you ignore the fact that it's come from religious outfits, is that okay? Is that good?
Catholic.
Yeah, religious outlets as opposed to the Bible. I'm just trying to keep you sweet.
No, that's proper. That's a proper thing to say. It came from the Catholic Church, Copernicus, and even one of their priests said they discovered the Big Bang. That's why when you have Satan, who's the great liar, he's going to infiltrate and pretend to be representing Christ and make many churches. And in those churches, they have a little bit of truth and a lot of falsehood. And that's like the Catholic Church.
Right. Same
In
with
other words,
gravity.
tend to say and stop blaming Christianity for it. It's Roman Catholicism.
Indeed.
I know, I was in it.
So was I.
Okay, but we started this by pointing out that Anthony's very good at juxtaposing the characters in the narrative of heliocentrism for what they are, and the fact he compares them to Christian-based... What's the word? I'm going to get in trouble if I use the word characters
Figures,
now, aren't I? Figureheads. Yeah, exactly. Go ahead, Anthony.
Yeah, because I always get mixed up. I can't ever remember which way round was it. Was it Eratosthenes that had the arc, or was it Archimedes? Because I remember Archimedes had that Eureka moment. No, that's in the Bible. I'm on about in their model, isn't it? Isn't it Archimedes that had the arc?
Noah.
No, Archimedes. Or am I getting things?
Do you remember the song? Who had the ark? Noah did.
Okay, here,
Noah
let me
did.
make it. Let me make it simple here. When you say Christian, we're thinking what the Bible teaches. When you say religious, I'm thinking what weird and other types of religious groups might say. So I think religious is a good way to say it, Anthony.
Okay,
Correct.
right. Look, I'm going to have to interrupt
was,
this to bring you probably the best Christmas cracker joke I heard all year, right? Which was, Jesus was 7 pounds and 6 ounces. How did they know? Because they had a way in the manger.
Oh, that's a straw man.
Have you heard the argument from silence argument they give forward?
You explain the argument from silence fallacy.
It's when you say because someone hasn't brought something to the attention of the group they're in that it can't be true.
Okay. Was there an example that you said that we should or heard of? Go on.
Yesterday in the Discord, I was kind of sleazing around a bit, listening to stuff, and the argument was made that because there is a field of astronomy that does beg the question of a sphere, and because within that field, no one has ever pointed out it's not a sphere, it must be a sphere.
That's ridiculous.
What? Because nobody has challenged Narnia, and there's an entire field based on Narnia research, and nobody within the field of Narnia research is questioning that Narnia is real. That makes Narnia real. That's the logic.
Well, what I did to him is I said, well, under that logic, you can no longer question the existence or validity of the Catholic Church because they're in that field. You're not. Your position doesn't hold sway.
I'd prefer you use Scientology. It's so much closer a parallel. But yeah, it's absolutely correct as a well, then you cannot question you can't question any temple, church, or any religious outfit at all based on that logic.
That's correct.
Yeah, but that's where the argument from silence. It's what was used to justify their belief in this radius religion.
Well,
They don't need a
that takes
radius
us back
lid,
to
man.
the schooling.
Hold on. Just go on, Neil.
That takes us back to the schooling. It's the education system that people are under. They become astronomers, and it's real.
Okay. And
that's where the problem is. We got to deal with the education system. It's always been the problem. That's why we're where we're at right now.
Okay,
so when are we going to attack the education system?
Okay, if you say the education system, and I'm sure Anthony will have something to say on this, what you're talking about is one organ in the matrix. Now, if the matrix is the world that we live in, and the Morpheus description of the wool that's been pulled over our eyes, what we all talk about, basically, right? That is the system. Now, Thomas Sheridan would describe it as the psychopathic control grid, because that's who it's run by. Now, that system has within it various other subsystems like organs in a body. One of those organs is the, quote, education system. It's a fundamental functioning part of the system as an entirety. In other words, to attack that particular thing, in this case education, is essentially you going up against the entire psychopathic control grid. I want Anthony to agree with me here. Please, God, agree with me.
It is.
But what's
exactly what it is.
Oh God, doesn't matter. Is what Okay? Let me ask you a question. Are what they're teaching in school true?
I don't know.
Pertaining to
I have no idea what they teach.
heliocentrism.
I don't know the answer to that because my kids aren't in school and I don't know what they teach in schools. I only know what I teach my kids.
You always slide around this, Nathan. I'm not letting you slide around this one here. What are they teaching in the schools? They're teaching this nonsense. People are becoming astronomers, astrologers, because they're teaching that it's real. 2 + 2 is math. That's real. Teach that.
And do you have to go to school?
Anything else that they teach is
like,
real.
Is it like jail if you've done something wrong? Like, you don't have an option.
I feel like Neil's got a valid point right there.
Okay.
Because
Sleeping Warrior's not backed me up yet. He hasn't agreed with me. He hasn't said a damn word. Hold on, Eli.
No, I did agree.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. No, you got rumpus by...
Just to back
one sec, Eli.
here,
Eli, just one sec. I just want to get it clear, right, that what I'm suggesting is that you brace against the entire system in that regard, and I just want Anthony to agree without being rumpus by Neil.
Yeah, I do agree.
Thank you. Go ahead, Eli.
Yeah. So I think it's fair to say, well, yeah, if you teach kids that they can one day go to the moon, I don't even think I have to make any more examples. That's definitely something that they're telling children that they can do and aspire to be astronauts, yada yada yada. That's not cool. That's because if we were doing that about Narnia, nobody would be happy with that.
But it is cool in their
That's a
system.
false equivalence.
Okay. Neil, not Neil, 10th. Oh, maybe Neil if you want. One of you give me an example from the Bible that's a well enough known Christian story about something coming from the sky. Yeah? Can you just give me one example that I can hold up, please?
Sodom and Gomorrah.
Sodom and Gomorrah. Did you say Sodom and Gomorrah?
Brimstone.
Fire and brimstone.
Fire and brimstone.
Perfect. Okay. You could just summarise fire and brimstone, and then I'll give you my juxtaposition. Anyone.
Who, me?
No, anybody who's just said fire and brimstone. I just want somebody to just give me a bit more padding to what fire and brimstone, is it's only a couple of words, actually means.
It's fiery sulfur rocks and
Raining lava.
fire and brimstone, bro. It's sulfur and rocks and fire.
Because
the sin went up to the nostrils of God, the sin of homosexuality.
Okay, thank God we got there in the end.
That wasn't homosexuality; it was fornication.
Okay.
Oh, whatever.
Okay,
Come on.
stop. That's all I need. I don't need it. Bloody hell! It's like pulling teeth to get a bit of because, and then when I do, it's like fucking can't put a cork back in. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so go back. Let's say a number that won't cause offence. 300 years, and in schools they teach about the heavens and about how God breathed in the fire of fornication and brought down fire and brimstone. Now we, on the fringes, going, they shouldn't be teaching this in school. And they go, yeah, but the schools are run by the churches. Now, Anthony, what did you say was the school you went to? You mentioned your church. Was your school, by any chance, run by the church?
Church of England, wasn't it? I don't know.
So you went to a Church of England school. Now, if I turn around to the school and say, it's unreasonable that you teach your system and your structure about fire and brimstone coming from the sky when you're a church school. That's not reasonable. Equally, while everyone's telling me that Neil's perfectly reasonable for us to go and knocking on the door of the schools and say, your system and your structure that we have opted in to have taught to our kids is wrong. I see that as unreasonable. Now, maybe John will back me up and say it's disrespectful. Maybe he won't. We'll see how this goes. But I fundamentally disagree. That's why I homeschool.
Well, hold on. I would like to say something about the system we do have, because, I mean, it's being attacked right now. And I'm not a big fan of consensus reality, but we do derive a lot of our what we consider truth from consensus.
Correct.
So,
Correct. We live in a... this really pains me to say and agree that we live in a... let's just shrug this filth off me. Consensus-based reality. Ugh. Now, when that finally dawned on me, it just sickened me. But that's what's being taught in the school.
Oh, we homeschool our kids too, but that's not the point. The point is, if they're teaching something that is not right, I don't care whose system it is, you're not teaching fact.
Well, the point that I was trying to make is that if you give everyone the very best education possible, and all they get done is to sit and press a button for 8 hours out of the day, 5 days a week, you think it will harbor resentment within them to know that?
I don't just press buttons, right? That's an outrage.
Can I just point something out, Nathan?
Yeah.
New topic.
Nobody's answering John, though. Just point out that everyone's just completely ignored him. Go ahead, Sleeping Warrior.
Just put my screen on for me, if you would. Just so that I don't have to make a video. I'm hoping that Nathan will trim this out nicely and repackage it.
Probably not.
Thanks very much. Nathan had a conversation with Flat Earth Math recently, Charles, and basically Nathan got to his question within 5 minutes. He basically said, how did Eratosthenes know the shape of the Earth? Because even by his own arbitrary position, which I happen to agree with, he says that you need to know the shape of the Earth before you ascribe maths to it. And I do agree with that. You do need to know that it's got a shape to it before you can ascribe an R to it. I just want to show you the contradictory nature of Charles. On Charles's video, under the heading from GPS from 2 days ago, you can see, if you scroll down, you can see Flat Earth Math. And look what he says. Look at the times here, 17 hours ago. So it's yesterday for me, right? He says here, he says, skip that first step at your peril. He's on about knowing the shape of the Earth before you start calculating it. He says, quote, I don't know how Eratosthenes knew the Earth was a globe. Asking me seems rather pointless. The dude's been dead for thousands of years, or maybe he never existed. Who cares? Well, ultimately, anyone that's interested or curious can find the shape of Earth without presupposing any value for R. This is the context, right? But it's clear he's saying that he doesn't know how Eratosthenes knew. But then we fast forward a couple of hours to today, and look what he says now, which I think was here. Must be this first one here. There we go. Sleeping Warrior. Oh my God. Eratosthenes knew it was a globe and thus was able to estimate its size. Or maybe he didn't exist, but you've made a very specific claim that mainstream science says that Eratosthenes proved the shape of the Earth's shape, cite the source. And then he says, do you know what? I think he's bloody deleted it. He's deleted his comment where he said, literally,
that's great.
Yeah, he literally said, because I've got him here. I said, so why did you only tell me yesterday that I don't know how Eratosthenes knew the Earth was a globe? He's literally admitting that Eratosthenes knew it was a globe, but for some reason he doesn't think about why he knew or how he knew, which is what we're asking. But he says yesterday that he knew it was, he didn't know how, but today he seems to be saying that it was a globe, and now he seems to be backtracking. So the point is, when Nathan was asking yesterday or the other day when he had the thing with Charles, Nathan spent 55 minutes trying to get him to answer the question. Charles spent 55 minutes evading it, ducking it, diving it, trying not to answer it, obfuscating it, passing the buck to somebody else in it, reversing the burden of proof on Nathan it, doing anything possible to avoid answering the question. Yet he seems to think here that, well, Eratosthenes knew it was a globe. Really? Well, how exactly did he know, Charles? Because that really is the question. You admitted yesterday you didn't know, but today you did know. So what's changed overnight? Because I'd love to know. So,
well, he's caught in a paradoxical relationship within his own philosophy, because to measure is to know, but he can't measure a sphere anymore. So it's a bit
Yeah, he didn't like
paradoxical.
that.
So
To measure is to
Yeah.
know. To figure out, you mean? That's the phraseology he used. And I was like, figure out, yeah, to measure. No. Figure. Yeah, they're figuring. Yeah, I know what that means. But for him, he can't measure anymore. So when you say figure out, no measurements. Just going to people like this example where they just knew already. So what, they beg the question for you? You didn't mention lying, Anthony. He repeatedly lied about needing R in the videos where he made explorations. And then I showed him where he had lied about utilization of an R value in false dichotomy. He repeatedly lied about it. It was super easy to go back to one of the videos, the one I left the comment on and said, here's you using R, and just trim them out. So when he asks me live, and I put in an edited video, where do I need R? I cut him saying, in the globe model.
Yeah.
Lying shit. But
He
it's
is
really
lying.
interesting to me that after that discussion, he went around doing damage control. And one of the things he said was, in 15 years of doing this, I've never been accused of being a liar. And I was like, enter Nathan, who proves you are one. It's like, man stands over corpse with blood dripping from knife. In all my life, I've never been accused of murder. Yep, and here we are with you red-handed with a knife in your hand, being proven to be one.
I've got to give a shout out to Ute as well. He said 15 years of being on flat earth arguments, right? So who were you arguing against 15 years ago? Can you provide any evidence? Because like most of us came to it around about, 15, 16? Well, if he was here 15 years ago, I mean, that's like, he's an embryo, isn't he? He's like one of the first ever people ever. So I'd love to see the supporting evidence for that claim, Charles.
It's called schizophrenia, isn't it? Sitting there arguing on your own 15 years ago.
Well, he was what he was doing.
Sorry, just 1 second. Quick shout out to Sacred Knowledge, aka Universe, who says, we are not in the Matrix. The Matrix is in us. Now, as much as he might be just trying to be funny and a bit like Morpheus, I do actually think there's a lot of truth in what you've said there, which is to say that the world that we experience is very much created in our own mind's eye. And your mind's eye can create the impression that you're on a sphere Earth when you absolutely are not. So that's what I assume the sentiment you're getting at when you're saying the Matrix is in us. Yeah, you're right. Sorry, John, go ahead. Thank you for the super chat, by the way.
Charles Flat Earth Math has always used a flat Earth or presupposed a flat Earth in all of his mathematics, except for the Earth curve calculator. But he's always utilized angles and flat Earth, flat baselines. So maybe that's where he got his name.
Yeah, absolutely. And as the more stupid fundies like Where's Wally and such are finding out, when they make the angle measurements in the first place and utilize a flat plane to do so, they can't quite believe it when we are being asked by them about why we'd need it to be curved. When we're claiming it's flat, they're measuring it flat and telling us about how they're measuring it flat, and then don't know why they'd need a curve. They can't quite, it fries their brains to the point where they start asking us questions about why you'd need a flat line to be bent like it was sphere-shaped. It's mad.
Why you make me prove a flat Earth?
Oh, that was priceless. I tried to look for that. It's such a long show, I couldn't find it. I really wanted to trim out Virus when he was caught in exactly that situation. And he starts going, what are you doing to me? What are you doing to me? It was absolutely wrecked. I just couldn't find it in the after show. Trim it out.
That was probably the funniest part of the show ever.
Absolutely.
I think it was about an hour and a half into the after show when that happened.
It was a long show yesterday.
Yeah, it's 4 hours. No, it's four. Maybe was it more? I think it was more than 4 hours. I can't remember. Either way, it was a very long show.
4 more hours. 4 more hours. Why you make me prove flat Earth?
Why are you making me prove that I've got a flat baseline? Why are you drawing me to this? My answer to him was because, well, that's what you get for free. You get all these Muppets that want my attention. Come and look at this, and come and look at that, and come and watch this video. No. No. You can ask me, but, I'll just give you an invoice. If you want free, just come here, and what you get is what Virus got, and FE Pilot, who's a Glober, got. That's what you get for free.
I gotta say that was the highest octaves I ever heard Virus go.
Yeah, man. He was squealing like a pig. And I
was
him
thinking
so.
of like Michael Jackson. Like he got up like octaves of Michael Jackson with that. That boy can probably sing.
It was the exasperation in his voice when he was being hauled over the coals for proving Earth's flat. Oh, brilliant. It's been a lot of fun in the last week since 2020 began, hauling people over the coals for angle measurements that they're making to make globe Earth assertions. It really has brought a smile to my face and a few tears to my eye, I can't lie. Of joy. Anyway. With that, I'm going to say, if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching live, this is where we bid you farewell. So, a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, joined as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member, and all that good stuff. Also, below this video, you can get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. And this is a particular note if you drive an electric vehicle. I've been Nathan Oakley. Stay tuned if you're watching on a premiering stream, and I'll see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!
Goodness.
I need context, Nathan. I need context.
I
Whoever's here.
got 9 slides up for you. I never got to them. The last one was the one you should have ended the show on. Where's Wally?
Okay.
I need context, though. I need context about
Context.
yesterday.
Context for what?
But the last thing you said about outcome virus.
What about
You gotta watch
4.5 hour show.
Yeah, you gotta watch the Uncut and After show, my friend.
I went
can
to go
sum it
look
up
for it,
pretty
but it's
quick.
not there yet. It's not uploaded yet.
I will trim it out, I promise. I'll find it.
I can sum it up for you in like 2 sentences.
Go, go, go.
He was asked how he measured a radius value, and then he proved a flat Earth.
And the rest is history.
That sounds a lot like Where's Wally? He did the same thing.
Yeah, he did.
Who's this Wally guy? I must have missed this Wally person.
You got the Wally slide up, Nathan. The last one.
I have.
Has he brought out his latest video? Thanks, Nathan, because that's my next video yet. Has anyone checked?
I don't understand. Say that again.
Didn't he say something like, thanks for my next video, Nathan?
That's what they all say when they get absolutely annihilated. Oh, I'm only hearing you to get sound bites, and I got them. So, job's a good one. Time for me to go. What you mean, after you've been absolutely pummeled and admitted that Earth doesn't need to have any curves, why would you have any? Asking flat earthers why you'd need curved surfaces. Telling us that you've measured flat baselines. Telling us that, of course it's flat, it's measured on Earth. That's what we got from him, but of course he got what he needed. So that was his excuse to go. Who else did that? Oh yeah, Bob the science guy. After being absolutely annihilated with the Sextant. You noticed QE's show yesterday? QE's show started off with all those quotes from Bob, from that very show, that he excused himself having declared that he'd got all he needed for a video he was making. Now all those quotes, no, don't need a horizon. And then QE cuts in his description of needing and using the horizon. Just beggars belief how stupid these people are.
So he's making a flat Earth video then. That's good news.
Yeah, nice to know.
Well, as far as I can tell, And as far as every claimed measured proof of the Earth being a sphere starts with the presumption that it's on a flat plane with the measurement of an angle.
That's correct.
Every single one.
That's correct. This is my favourite proof ever. This is a flat Earth proof everybody can get their teeth into. And I mean, layman's, intermediaries, high level and tip of the spear flat earthers at every level can get behind this argument. Why? Because it's the only argument that leaves the opponent asking you why you'd need to measure it curved. So at what stage do they beg the question? In their rebuttal or in their assertion or in any of the measurements? Where do they beg the question of R? Oh, they don't. At no stage when they make these measurements do they need or require a sphere. Furthermore, if they used one, it wouldn't work. So it must be flat in all circumstances. It's epic. It's a great argument.
Let's get more
I
on
agree.
that. Let's get more on that. Go to the first slide I sent you with the Al-Biruni angle measurement. Let's go through those slides.
I didn't get that. The photo before was my daughter in the lab.
It's 8 of them before the Wally one.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The Pepsi thing.
No. It's Al-Biruni's got the angle measurement with a green mountain.
Nope. Afraid not.
Well, you gotta be kidding me. It's a masterpiece.
No,
It's right after you. It's right after you put your link, Nathan, to get on the show.
Okay, I'll have a look. I got it.
Okay. So here we are. Understand problem. I even used to solve these types of problem back in school. Biruni used the following formula. For the purpose of simplicity, lengthy derivation is omitted. What's the formula on the image? Adam, you brought this to our attention. What did he do first?
See, this is a basic bit of trigonometric calculations, using flat baseline. That's the assumption he makes is that the baseline is flat for him to calculate the height of the mountain.
So even he had to do it, right?
Yeah.
No curved adjacent here?
Yeah, it's measuring an
no
angle.
Adjacent?
Well, okay.
Yeah.
You're falling on silence. So what 10th is getting at is that this line here that Al-Biruni is using to get the difference in these two angles. What's that you say? Angles? Yeah, that requires this line to be flat. It must be flat for him to get a difference in these angles. Omega 1 versus omega 2.
Correct. Let's go to the next slide. Finding the angle of elevation for an observed object. Following to the next slide, use a map to find your position above sea level. If you're not using the sextant from aboard a ship at sea, you'll have to correct your sighting for your height above sea level. Look at a map that includes information about your elevation or use in apps such as Google Maps to check your elevation. Write down your elevation so you can use it later to correct your readings. We're talking about shoreline readings of lighthouses and things there. Since the sextant measures the angle between an object in the sky and the horizon, Bob, your reading will be less accurate if you're not making a measurement from the sea level of the horizon or sea level. You'll need to correct the difference to find the true altitude of the object you're observing. The difference between your elevation and the level of the horizon is called dip. Now, does that mean Earth curve? Well, let's go to the next slide. Even if you're at sea level, you still need to make a dip correction to take into account the difference between the horizon level and the height of your eye. That's the dip, the height of your eye above sea level, so that you can have the baseline be 0. So you can get an angle. Any comments?
Seems like the horizon is just being used to establish a horizontal plane, isn't it?
Exactly. Now, that's why the bubble sextant works at 30,000 feet or 40,000 feet, or even from land, because it establishes a horizontal to where your eye is or where you're
Oh, well,
holding it.
now I do have a question. So, if you're establishing a horizontal baseline with a bubble sextant at altitude, then correct me if I'm wrong, then there's no correction to be made by way of using a visual horizon to establish horizontal. You've done it with the tool itself. So there's no dip correction then, correct?
Correct. The bubble horizon as well as the artificial horizon do not require dip because you've already establishing a flat baseline with the horizontal.
So to answer your question, although it might have been rhetorical at the beginning, not a globe Earth dip then, merely a necessity when using a phenomenon known as the horizon to establish horizontal, negated if you use the tool to do it.
It's important that we recognise that the horizontal that we're either forcing through optics or establishing with levels is fundamentally a parallel. It's a parallel line, and we can't get our eye to the surface. So the best we can do, and that's why we make adjustment, is to have a parallel line running to the flat surface, and that's fundamentally its purpose. It's to match the flat surface that you're going to then do everything on. So you're establishing a parallel horizontal to the flat surface. That's what you're establishing when you do that.
Right, and it doesn't matter if the tool does that at 30,000 feet with a bubble, or you do that by dip correction with the visual horizon. Both achieve the same thing, which is a parallel line running to the actual ground beneath.
Yes, the only reason dip correction is mandatory is when you use the natural sea horizon, you must get to water level. That's the only reason it's mandatory when using the natural sea horizon, where the sky seems to meet the sea. If you're going to use artificial horizon, which is still acting as a base for you to line up to get a horizontal, there's no need because you already have it. A bubble, the bubble level, spirit level, we know how that works in carpentry. You already have it. You just have to have a baseline, and it has to be flat, it has to be straight line. It has to be 3 straight lines because you need a right angle triangle. You need a 90. No matter what, you need a 90. If it was possible at sea to get a 90 from the zenith of the observer, they would just do it that way, but they can't because the boat's rocking. So they go to the horizon, which is the steadiest thing out there for them to sight. And then because it is, and they're 14 feet or 20 feet above the sea level, they must apply dip. That's why in the theodolite, you got a level to set it.
I would like to point out something, that in a lot of these situations, we've been talking about dip correction. But unfortunately, with heliocentrism infecting people's minds, what's happened is they have this mathematical geometric horizon in a lot of these, like the Davis Sextant manual and other places. And the dip goes past what is even labeled as the actual horizon. Their dip angle goes to their geometric horizon. And then they do a height of eye correction, which then that makes the whole thing horizontal underneath the boat, right? But they bring a dip, right, mathematically to a geometric horizon of a globe. And that's what they've been doing for ages. So when we say dip horizon, they're happy, our opposition are happy to go along with that because it's the height of eye correction that killed them in the end. Because the height of eye correction then takes that dip, their mathematical dip, to their mathematical horizon, right? And it then levels it out and makes it a horizontal line along underneath the boat, this going to whatever distance to the GP of the
I
celestial.
see. You've been trying to feed this into us for a while. Its pennies just dropped because as soon as you make the height of eye correction, back to Adam's point earlier, everything's running parallel with that. That's why it works. So once you've got that correction, it don't matter if that's done to correct it to the ground or correct it to a line that's parallel to the ground 30,000 feet in the air. Makes absolutely no difference. Because they're all parallel, the height of eye correction kills them. the fact that they've got a presupposition of a geometric horizon in the first instance, they do a bit of maths jiggery-pokery, and then do the height of eye correction to get it all parallel. So it's all flat. So the line from the GP of the star to your 30,000 feet line and below is all parallel and flat at every intersecting point 90 degrees. So it's all flat.
Well, with the height of eye correction, you're not making a straight line from your eye. I just want to, like you're saying, parallel. No, the height of eye correction, what that does is it brings, let's just say if you're in a seesaw, where one end is down touching their mathematical geometric horizon, and the other end of the seesaw is up at the eye line of the observer. And the axis of the seesaw is right on the water line underneath your boat. Then the height of eye correction brings that side that's at the eye line of the observer, it brings that down, right, touching the water.
My bad.
The boat,
so I got it the wrong way around. So it's, I got you. So instead of, I've got it the wrong way around. So unlike a bubble sextant, where you're bringing up a parallel line to your level, when you do the height of eye correction, you're taking your observer on the seesaw downwards towards the horizon and bringing your position down to level you with the ground. Correct?
Sort of.
Yeah. What I can do is I can actually put on the computer and get out the diagram and show it if you like.
That'd be lovely.
It's not that Go on, Adam.
It is and it isn't. You can view it like that, but all you do, because all you've got to do is generate parallel. It doesn't matter the height, as the bubble said. All you're doing is, the higher you go, the more open the bottom of your cone of vision is. So it's less likely to intersect with the floor. So it means you've got to adjust more, basically. So all you're doing is trimming off that little bit of angular change that's caused by the height and using the horizon, and that's all you're adjusting for. Whether you're bringing it down or up, I mean, you're actually taking a bit of angle off. So technically, you can view it either way, really, because what's fundamentally is what you're doing is you're just adjusting that slight bit of your horizontal so that you know it's at the correct point based on your height. So it's just to make it again parallel. It doesn't have to be that complicated where you're dragging it down, because the function is to have a parallel line. Once you've got that, then the heavens does the rest of the work. So your altitude's irrelevant.
Well, I would.
But let me
disagree with that. Go on.
Look, bottom line, it's an angle. You need 3 straight lines. If you're 14 feet above this boat, that's not jiving with the horizon and sea level. So dip correction is to get you to sea level as if you were taking it from there rather than 14 feet up, to establish a correct 90 and a correct right angle triangle. What Brian, I believe, is talking about is the Muppet vision drawings that they put into not just the sextant manuals, but all along that Nathan in the show has shown us. And they have the mathematical geometric horizon, which doesn't exist because it's not physical. And they fool you with that, or try to fool you with that. We've already busted that open for them because of the black swan. So what is a sextant? It's an angle measuring device. What's an angle? 2 straight lines meeting to create a corner or vertex. That's what's got to happen. And that's got to happen with the horizon. Well, if you're 14 feet above sea level, you got to bring your eyeball to sea level to get it so that it's a proper 90. That's simple as that. Now, if you're going to look at those drawings and try to get into what the ballers are trying to say it is, it's going to complicate this. The angle is an angle. That destroys the globe right there.
Okay, right, Brian, I've got you presented. You might have to come out of your screen share to take yourself off mute. Just give Brian a second.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we hear you now. Perfect.
Okay. Okay. You see these 2 arrows here? I'll make it bigger, right? See these 2 arrows here? Well, this line here, this arrow at the bottom is pointing to, that's the sea level, or let's say the sea level underneath the person, right? There's the person's eye line. This is the other arrow that's pointing to this line, which is which is representing the eye line of the person. So the height of eye correction is bringing this line straight down to that line, right? So as you can see here, if you can see my cursor, this line goes through where the person's eye line is and down, and it touches a mathematical geometric horizon here. But I just going to add a line. This will do perfect. So if you can imagine that this is that line, right? So if they want to correct for the height of eye, they need to correct for this area here where it says height of eye. So that means they got to bring this line down to the water, right? But that also means that they have to bring this line back up. And it creates that. And that's the whole point of it. So their dip correction doesn't stop at the actual horizon. This diagram is from the Davis, isn't it? The Davis Sextant manual.
Yeah, the one I sent you.
Yeah, the Davis Sextant manual. So this is the thing. Their dip doesn't just go to the actual horizon; it goes down to their geometric horizon. So if you can imagine, what happened there? Sorry. So if you can imagine that. If I put this back up, that there is a seesaw effect, and right here where my cursor is, that's the axis of the seesaw. So when they bring this down to the surface of the water, they have to bring this up, and that gives them their horizontal. That makes it geometric as opposed to just optical. Whereas if it's parallel with the surface, it's an optical. Whereas this one, I much prefer this myself as an argument.
I don't disagree with this, right? As an explanation for non-reality, and that's the point. What I was explaining was the cone of vision of what Bodhi just was describing. Okay, in reality with the flat plane, and interestingly, the maths is very, very similar in terms of how you correct for dip across the flat plane. It's a very different explanation of what's happening, because we've not got something curving away underneath. We've just got something heading off into the distance. So what I was describing was it on a flat plane. What you're describing is how they resolve it mathematically in the ball, what they claim is going off, or what you would have to do in that diagram. It doesn't really matter whether you do what you do, seesaw it on that pivot point, or just if you put the beginning of the line at the eye, so shrink it and just put it on the line and then just bend it up. You're doing the same angle.
I don't think he disagrees with that. It's more that what Adam's describing is the justification for a dip angle correction in terms of the cone of vision that you create when you widen your angle as you increase in altitude. What Brian's describing is the dip correction the globers describe, which furthermore needs a height of eye correction. And when they're doing it, it's got a seesaw effect that they're justifying to bring it parallel with the geometric horizon, and then height of eye correction further to that. But all Adam's justification does, and Brian's explanation that they use from this Sextant manual does, is give you a straight line to work with in both cases, right?
Correct.
Parallel with the surface.
Parallel with exactly, Adam. That's the most crucial detail. Parallel with the surface. Correct, Adam.
Nathan, go to the last slide after Wally. I just sent it to you. You'll see it in the black and white. We've shown it before. This will give you something to.
I just say one thing, because I'll unshare my screen then, right? And I'll go quiet and leave you speak, Tent. This would be a parallel. This, right? So this would be optical, right? Now, I understand this totally, but I much prefer this, because this is geometric. So there can be no messing with it. That's
right.
why.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. I'll double down with you. When you're using the natural sea horizon, your blue line where it currently is after dip correction so that it's flat. But the Sextant works from 30,000 feet as well, because you have based already a horizontal line. That's all you need is a right angle triangle, and you can't do that at using the natural horizon if you're above sea level. So that's why it's only required using the natural horizon for dip correction and is not mandated, nor can be used with a bubble sextant or artificial horizon because you're already establishing the blue line.
Yeah, it's the artificials that demonstrate that it's just a parallel line we're generating. It doesn't matter where you conceptualize the line is, as long as you know it's parallel. With a bubble, you're 50,000 feet up, whatever. When you do the dip correction, the correction applies to the angle on the sextant. It's correcting that based on your height. You can conceptualize it as that it's bringing the eye down to the ground, which it's one way of viewing it. But all you're actually doing is adjusting a slight angle that you know is wrong because you've used the optical horizon, and the adjustment has to be on your height, and that's what you do because so you're not technically bringing it down. What you're technically doing is using the knowledge of your height to make the adjustment that you know you're off that parallel line by. So you're just adjusting it to the parallel. Is in my head how I see it mathematically. And I don't think it matters if you view it the other way and you're pulling it there. The only distinction I want to make is this, what's on screen with Brian, is their explanation. It's not the understanding we have of how dip correction is working. Because this is all based fundamentally, the premise of a geometric physical edge being the point you adjust to. And that we know is false because of black swan.
Nathan, do you have the black and white picture?
Yeah,
One second.
I've been dancing around it for about 10 or 15 minutes back and forth between Brian's and yours. Let Brian round out so I can actually go to it once and stay there.
Yeah, just leave me around on this point, right? If I make a parallel, right, using a bubble sextant, right, whether I'm 20 foot above the water or I'm 1,000 feet above, whichever, right, I'm making a parallel with a pre-assumed, right, a parallel line obviously is two straight lines that don't meet, right, and they're an equal distance apart. So I'm making it with a pre-assumed flat surface or a surface that has a horizontal baseline, like sea level, right? But why that is, I don't have a problem with that, and I understand it totally. But I much prefer as an argument this one, because now it's not just an optical, because when it's up there, it's a pre-assumed optical. Whereas when it's down there and with the dip and height of eye correction, it's then geometric. And that's why I prefer that more.
But Brian, that's a moot point because it works from up there, just like it works with your blue line. They all work.
I'm not arguing that it doesn't work.
No, it does work. That's how bubble sextant works.
Yeah, but I'm not arguing that whether it works or not. I'm arguing that I'm talking about it as an argument against our opposition. This is geometric. This is an optical parallel.
Again, I must say here, in all the reading I've done, it doesn't matter because the only time you do dip is when you use the natural sea horizon. So they're dead. That was the sextant trap. We got them on that. It was over. They died. There is no such thing as that dip, that other thing that they showed to the left with that curvature. That doesn't exist because the sextant can't work on a curved surface. That was my very first slides dripping on the show last year. It cannot work with a curved surface. And
But that's
slowly
what-
but sure.
Isn't that what Brian's holding them to in this dip correction? Because of the way they do it, we know it's optical. We know it's an optical adjustment, all right, based on perspective that we have to make based on your height. But in their world, it's not. It's an alignment. Brian's right. It becomes geometry because it's touching a physical edge in their claim. It's not in ours. Wherever we want to place that line, it's always an optical adjustment that we of a known variant that we're adjusting for, the observer height of the eye with our eye spirit level. That's what we're adjusting for. We're not adjusting physically to something. The adjustment is to the optical error. But in their world, they're lining up with a physical thing that they know is dipping away, and therefore they have to adjust the angle because they've lined it up with something that's curving away. So they're going to bring it back to a tangent in their world, as you see in the picture.
Yeah, see, I don't argue. I don't argue.
Let me just show you something, right?
Okay, let me just
Yeah,
respond to Adam.
Okay.
No,
in
that's
reality- Oh, sorry. Go on. Sorry.
no, that's good. Leave that up. See, that's what's happening right there. Forget that ball underneath. That's what's happening right there from a boat. So what he's got to do now, bring that blue line down to his feet, and that's dip correction, height of eye. That's it. Forget that ball underneath, because the dip, the slides I'm going to go through after you're done is going to prove all this, and this one even proves all this. The ballers fall for every little lie, like this thing. There's no such thing as Earth curving away from you. The sextant can't work on the Earth curving away from you.
Yeah, well, this
Can I just throw
diagram
my
shows-
two? I've been waiting about 10 minutes. I'll throw my two pennyworth here. What's H?
H is the geometric horizon.
Oh, we debunked that.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, my argument is not. I'm not arguing about this working as an optical parallel. I have no argument there whatsoever. What I'm saying is that, and this is the last thing I'll say on it, is that I prefer this argument where we use the sea and the sea horizon, and we create an absolute parallel. We create a horizontal on the surface of the water underneath the boat. As an argument against our opposition, I much prefer that one, simply because it can't be messed with then. It's become geometry. It's not optical even anymore. It's geometry, because you're using the actual surface of the water underneath your boat, and you're making a straight line. So that would be all I'd say about it.
Okay, go to the black and white slide, Nathan, please.
Okay.
You there?
Yes.
Okay, this is the foolishness and the folly of the ball. You have to assume you live on a sphere. Can't prove it. You have to assume it. And you have to assume sun rays come in parallel rays. Sunlight comes in parallel rays, as shown here in the black and white. Okay, this is all an assumption. We know it doesn't happen. We've got divergent rays, and there is no R, black swan. But let's go with the picture. The zenith is right there. You see the airplane? What's he need with the bubble sextant? A baseline. Guess what has to match it? That ship on the Earth's surface. See the baseline? It's extended outside of the roundness of that ball there. And see, they got the center of the Earth, which is where they think they're getting it from. It's all straight lines. It's all baselines. The triangle needs a baseline. A sextant can't work with a curved surface. It's over right there. Whether you use the natural horizon and take dip to get the straight line, or you use the bubble sextant or the artificial horizon that already assumes a straight line. They all have to work the same. Sextant doesn't morph into something else when it's used on Earth as it does when it's used in an airplane. It has the same principles. You need a right angle triangle. You need a zenith. You need 90 degrees. You need that box. It's all the same.
Unless you get a cool sextant that's got a center of the Earth mode.
Well, let's keep going on. Nathan, you got it. Unless someone wants to comment, I want to go back to the present I was doing.
Just on that center of the Earth mode, and they claim they're not using R, but as soon as you've took that angle, right, whether you off the surface, yeah, you're then going to have to travel a certain distance to the center of the Earth to put that angle there, and that distance you've got to move it is R. So instantly, I know they try not to write it on the diagrams, but the second they move it from the surface, they've moved it by a unit of R. And that becomes fundamental later as the angles play out. They instantly claim R as soon as they claim it's a tangent, because it's a tangent to a sphere. And they're going to move it to the center of that sphere for the rest of their calculation.
Correct. So they say, yeah, we can measure with a curved adjacent. We use a tangent plane. All right. Tangent to what? A sphere? You'll need R for that.
Perfect. It's problematic for them because it doesn't exist. It's a thought experiment.
Yeah, but what are they achieving when they do that? Hold on, just to speak to Adam's point. So they say they need a tangent. Okay. So it's back to, was it Brian's diagram? I don't know if you've still got it up, Brian. Have you? No. In Brian's
Nathan, I didn't think you needed it anymore.
Well, what you've got... Yeah, if you can bring it up, that'd be handy. In Brian's diagram, he's got a straight line to the geometric horizon. Well, why? Well, so that he's got a straight line. Something that A, they don't have on a globe anymore because they've got atmospheric refraction in sphere-shaped air, based on R. And secondly, to measure an angle, they can't do it off the curved surface they claim the Earth is. So when they say, well, we'll draw out a tangent, what, a straight line? Why aren't you using the curved surface? Well, because they can't. So everything below that line becomes redundant. It's not needed. What they need is a straight line to measure the angle with.
Precisely.
And the perfect example of that was displayed yesterday with the question, what's the first line? Oh, from you to the star. What's the second line? Oh, from you to the star. Like, that's the same line, bro. What's wrong with you? Oh, you got to avoid the other line that's on the surface that's flat.
We're not talking about the ground. When I give you this as an example to get R, which is a measurement from the ground to the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth, I'm not talking about the ground.
Yesterday on QE's show, I was in chat.
I just want to tell Nate, I put that in bold so that's fine, Nathan.
Oh, thanks.
Yesterday, I was in QE's chat listening to the show, and Phil B and I were going back and forth. And he said, we don't need a 90, we don't need a right triangle. Well, Harold Jacoby, who's a subject matter expert and dean of astronomy at, I forget the college now, but it'll come to me. In his book that I showed, and even QE referenced on the same show, says you need a 90 and it's a right angle triangle. So a subject matter expert on the subject is going to be debunked by Phil B. I think not. These guys are fools. I'm going to call them as fools. Sextant trap worked. They're just going down the toilet at the moment. They have to say everything requires a straight line, which Nathan just beautifully said. Well, then you can't have that on the globe. It's over. If you're going to use refraction, it's over.
There's no way out of this argument. It's brilliant. It all starts and ends on a flat plane. Go ahead.
The next slide is the bubble unit. It was right after the wiki slide, if you can go to that.
The one with the blue background.
Yeah, it says bubble unit on top and some text.
Yeah.
Okay. The unit, which is apparently taken directly from the MX series, is attached to the main body by two screws. It contains a bubble mechanism, partially reflecting mirror and mirror lens assembly. Figure 8. There's a slanted clear glass window in front of the clear glass window in the rear of the eye. So as you can see here, this is like a cutout of a bubble sextant. And everything's labeled: the bubble, lighting control, the iPad, the mirror lens, partially reflecting mirror, lighting, do not, bubble chamber, okay, air chamber, and daylighting window. Next slide. The principle of the bubble unit is shown in figure 9. The bubble is lit by daylight or a bulb via perpex do not directly below the bubble chamber. Light rays shown in the yellow then pass through partially reflecting glass shown in white and are reflected by mirrors. Lens combination whose focal length is the same as the radius curvature of the top of the bubble unit. The bubble is a focal plane, mirror lens, so the reflected rays emerge as parallel rays and are reflected into the eye via partially reflecting glass. Rays shown in red from the observed body and fixed horizon mirror passes straight through the partial reflector. Effectively, the body and the bubble and both appear together at infinity at the eye. So there it is. That's the process. Notice the 90 degree you're going to get there. Next. What about bubble sextants and artificial horizons? Some military sextants. Are you listening? Fight the flat earth? Because we're waiting for you. Some military sextants are equipped with a bubble attachment for use by submarines. On dark nights, an actual functional bubble attachment is very, very expensive and very little utility for a vessel which is always on the surface. The practice bubble attachment sold by some companies is basically a carpenter's level, and for actual navigation or even sextant practice is essentially worse than useless. Some companies also sell an artificial horizon, which is little more than using a tray of water to reflect the image of an object back onto itself. You can achieve the same thing with a pie plate or a rain puddle and save yourself $30 or so that companies charge. But this isn't the way we shoot sights. So it really isn't even useful for training. You are much better off using even a small body of water and computing for the difference between the near shore and the horizon. However, if you are even 3 miles of water between you and the opposite shore, such as a true or most of Puget Sound, for example, you have a real horizon, even though you can see land beyond the curvature of the Earth. I love that part. Next one, Hughes Marine Bubble Sextant. Recently, I won a bidding vintage marine sextant, which I soon discovered to be rather unusual. At first sight, it resembles the Hughes MX bubble sextant as the RAF and others in World War II. However, the sextant is intended for marine use. It appears that the German Navy started using bubble sextants on board submarines. Well, that's what Fight the Flat Earth is coming at us with eventually. Bring it on, because they use night vision telescopes on the bubble sextants. They surface, and they use the bubble sextant from submarines. Works on the same principle. You need a baseline no matter what. All sextant, no matter what kind, needs a baseline. It's an angle. They're dead. They got nowhere to go, Nathan.
Oh, I totally agree. 2021, start of the age of the sextant. 2022, it's been nothing but ballers coming in, asking us why they'd measure curved adjacents, and telling us how they're measuring it flat. It's been a great year so far. I mean, it's been short, but it's been great.
I mean, you don't need the surface when you're measuring the surface.
We don't need the surface when we're claiming to get a measurement from the surface to the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth. I don't need the surface because you've just pointed out that I used a flat surface. And that flat surface that couldn't be curved, I mean, why would I want to measure that curved? They ask us.
They're staying away from the ground. I keep telling you that.
We know. They want to claim that they get the zenith and then measure the angle to the star in the sky. Well, where do they get the zenith from? Anybody answer me? When they claim zenith, where are they getting the zenith from?
Which zenith?
When they say we're going to measure down, we're going to measure from our zenith, right? From 90 degrees from a flat baseline. That's where they get it from.
Correct.
They don't measure the zenith. They calculate it after the measurement they take, which is, as Nathan says, from the flat baseline to the star. You then calculate your zenith after you've actually dealt with reality of achieving your parallel to the flat baseline.
Flat baseline. Hold on. Just listen to what Adam's just said. Flat baseline first, then zenith. All right, Adam?
Yeah, step one.
Yeah.
Step one.
Circles of equal altitude.
Equal. Circles. 2D. Flat. That's right. But listen to what Adam's just said. First comes your flat baseline. So your elevation angle is going to be utilising... Actually, I don't know if this is correct, because they do use a zenith mirror in the sextant, don't they, Adam?
What, that new upgrade that they've put on there? Yeah. No, the zenith is not measured in any way. It's calculated off of the measurement from the elevation angle. The elevation angle uses the principle that the surface is a flat level plane, and you're going to calculate an angle from that. Once you've got your elevation angle, you've got your horizontal line. Well, once you've got your horizontal line and your elevation angle, you can calculate your zenith, and that's what you do. Nobody measures. What would you be measuring? What, a bit of black above your head? What are you lining it up to? There's nothing to line it up to. It's just a theoretical point after your measurement.
After you've got a flat Earth measurement. So
let me throw in my...
Well, there's something I want to come back to, which obviously QE needs credit for because he pointed out immediately. But the Blackpool Swan, the entire claim required a flat Earth first. Every essence of it, every part of it, every single aspect of that claim hinged on a flat Earth being used to measure those angles first.
There's two zeniths. We need that box. We've shown it before. There's the GP of the sun or a star or the moon, and that's a sextant is using that to create the right angle triangle and get a 90-degree box. And the GP of the sun is right underneath the sun, and it's That's land-based, Earth-based. The complementary part of that box is called co-altitude. Its official name. It's called the co-altitude. What's the co-altitude? Well, once you get that first one, then you can do the box, because the co-altitude is the observer's zenith, his GP, that goes straight up to that black part in the sky. And then it makes a quick left and meets up with the first one to finish the box. And that co-altitude is the zenith distance. Between the zenith of the sun and the zenith of the observer is the distance times 60 nautical miles, the degrees times 60 nautical miles. But the first one must be achieved in order to get the second one to be converted into distance. And the first one is simply an angle measurement.
Right, hence the term nautical miles.
Yeah, it's back to, like, this was my point with the videos I made, is that you're measuring a straight horizontal distance along the sky in minutes of degree, and then those minutes of degree are converted via that distance being brought down to the surface of the Earth. They're converted into nautical miles. Nautical miles wouldn't exist without minutes of degree. And it's that box, that co-altitude, that box, that's what gives you your nautical mile distance, because you first of all have to establish your minutes of degree, amount. And that's established by you having a 90 and another 90 at the GP of the celestial body. And your angle to the celestial body establishes then that straight, the top of that box, your minutes of degree amount. And then you, as I said, that is converted. That line is brought straight down and is converted to nautical miles. I had a claimed 30-year navigation expert, right? This guy who claimed to be an admiral in the Swiss Navy. This guy, Arctic Reflections, I'm sure you've run into him. We pulled him on something before here on the show. He was a total lawyer. But this guy is claimed to have been in the Swiss Navy, and he is an admiral or something, and he has 30 years of celestial navigation experience. And he told me that he told me I was wrong about that, and he told me I was wrong about the diagram from the Davis manual. He didn't know I was referencing the Davis manual. And he told me today that I was wrong about those two things. So this guy supposedly does have some naval background or whatever, but that doesn't mean that he's not a filthy lawyer.
Nathan, can you go back? I missed that. What were you saying, QE said about the Blackpool Swan?
So going back a year or so, maybe a bit longer, when conspiracy cats and anti-flat Earth now turned perspective came out with their claim of the Blackpool Swan, one of the first things that QE pointed out was that a quote from conspiracy cats was, "I'll give you a flat Earth for this. I'll even beg the question of a flat Earth for you." And QE points out that that's because he can't measure an elevation angle from a curved adjacent. Does that sound familiar?
I remember that.
Right, it should sound familiar. It's the same argument we're talking about now. It's the age of the Sextants. Same argument. So therefore, it's something we can go back to. We can go back to the original claims being made, my point being that every one of those claims required a flat Earth first.
Wow.
So yeah, it's something we can call them out on. Why not? Hello? You told us you'd give us a flat Earth in that Blackpool Swan so that you can measure a few angles. Okay, now do it with a sphere. Let's see you measure those angles with a curved adjacent, because that's what you're claiming the ground is. Meanwhile, just to highlight this also, you proved the flat Earth the moment you started giving us angle measurements. You said you assumed it, you didn't, you proved it. And then after proving a flat Earth, you went on to make all sorts of crazy assumptions about R that you haven't proven. But, as I say, they measured and proved a flat Earth. They didn't measure a damn thing. They just made a load of assumptions from a photograph, actually. They didn't measure anything. Again, props to QE, who was the first to point that out. Measuring what now? You haven't got any measurements. What are you talking about? You need to be there with an angle measuring device. Can anyone name a measuring device that gives you angles that they could have used? It doesn't matter.
Sextant.
Right. Well, were they out there with sextants? Or did they just give us the photo and then start telling us about if they assume Earth's flat so they can declare the angle that they went forth with, then the Earth's a sphere? So if I prove Earth is flat by the only means I can give you this angle, that's off a flat plane, then I'll make all my assumptions about how Earth's a sphere and this proves it's not flat. Just unbelievable, really, when you think back on it. So, I'm just saying, let's call them out on it. Hello, guys. How'd you get that angle with a curved adjacent? Don't worry about giving us a flat Earth. Just tell us how you did it on a sphere. Because that would involve having that angle measurement from a curved adjacent, wouldn't it?
Yeah, just keep letting them talk.
Anyone else got anything to add on this?
I just think it's sad that they come down to our level just to go back to spherical indoctrination. They do everything right, and then the indoctrination takes over, and they get it all twisted.
Anyone else got anything to add?
Yeah, I'll have you know that Ranty stared at that photograph for 200 hours. That was his claim.
Yeah, but at the time he said he did that, he simultaneously told us that he'd lost all interest and wasn't looking at anything. You do realise that?
Yeah, well, I don't think he stared at that photograph for 200 hours.
Nathan, I'm uploading one last slide. Let me tell you which one it is, and then I'm done. So it's obviously I put up the one with the ship, but it's not that one. It's the black and white one. Do you see it with the sun?
With the yellow sun?
Yeah. So here it is. H, elevation angle measured up from the horizon. Z, zenith angle measured from vertical. A, azimuth angle measured clockwise from north. And this is what they do once they get their calculations, so forth. But let's focus on the sun and where you see the letter above the observer, zenith, called up. Draw a straight line from up to the sun. That's your co-altitude, that second triangle in the sky where the baseline is the distance times nautical miles.
Right. Any more for any more? No? With that, I'm going to say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G+ panels for making today's after show possible. And of course, a massive thank you to all of you in either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams. Hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, joining as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and all that good stuff. Also below this video you can get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. This is a particular note if you drive an electric vehicle. I've been Nathan Oakley and I will see you all in the next video.